Today we're looking at a VFR landing in the vFlyte Piper Twin Comanche at Shoreham Airport. Probably the most difficult part of this approach and landing is actually finding the airport or finding the runway. It's quite difficult to spot. In fact, the first time I tried an approach at this airport, I actually overflew the runway because I just couldn't see it. You're actually pretty much aiming for the hill dead ahead and hoping that you're going to spot the runway at some point. Might be easier to make this approach at night with runway lights illuminated. And of course we're in the vFlyte Piper Twin Comanche, which is a pretty good old school twin. It's a lot of great detail. It's a real hands-on aircraft with an unusual autopilot, and I would very much recommend it, especially if you're interested in flying twins. I make a slight mistake with this approach. I'm a little bit lower than planned or than I would normally be. I'd like to say that it was intentional, that I have in mind the shortness of the runway, because it is a quite short runway, but unfortunately that's not a valid excuse. I just miscalculated a little bit, but it kind of worked out fine in the end. I'm just trying to straighten it up here. As I'm on approach, I'm trying to work out the wind. I get the feeling that I'm being pushed a little bit to the left, and as I flare the aircraft, you'll see I'm dipping the right wing a little bit and using opposite rudder to straighten the aircraft. I think the wind was variable, so it's entirely possible I was getting a little bit of a push to the left. So I'm just trying to straighten it up. I realise I'm a little bit low. Just bring the nose up a little bit. I'm going to back off the power anyway, so it's not a big deal. Just bringing the nose up. Bring the power back and touchdown at less than 100 FPM. I have an issue here where the aircraft, as you can see, has a little bit of lateral movement. I'm not really sure what's going on with that. Obviously I'm aware of the effects of crosswinds on rollout, but it just seems to be a little bit different to that. I've also noticed it on the takeoff roll, where it feels like there's a force just kind of grabs a hold of the aircraft and pulls it in one direction. And when that happens, I don't seem to have much rudder authority. It doesn't really respond that well, and I have to give an awful lot of rudder, which then kind of goes into an overcorrection, and then you have that kind of pendulum effect. So make no mistake here, I don't clean the aircraft up. I think I'm more concerned really with keeping the aircraft straight. But yeah, flaps should come up, lights should go off. I would say with this aircraft, if I was going to give any advice on flying it, the first thing I would say, before you start the aircraft, before you start going through any checklist, make sure the fuel pump, magnetos and the external lights are all off. It has a habit of leaving those in the on position. I don't know whether that's saving the previous condition, but I would certainly recommend doing that, and also checking that the avionics master is in the off position. Avionics master is kind of at the top of the dashboard. It's one of two switches if you look centrally at the top. Always takes me a while to remember where the avionics master switch is located. Good aircraft to fly. I'm getting back into it, but I'm having to re-familiarise myself with it. You are really required to look at your gauges, in particular look at your cylinder head temperatures, and use your cowl flaps to keep those cool. So it is a hands-on aircraft. It's not an aircraft that you can just expect that it will work fine regardless. This of course is Shoreham Airport. This is the Orbex Shoreham Airport. When I first got this airport, I actually couldn't use it at all because there was a bug with the taxiways, which meant that it was just next to impossible to taxi. You had to use an awful lot of power to get it moving. As you can see, the windsock there is pretty well, it's showing pretty much no wind conditions. I do think there's a little bit of push to the left. So this is actually the first time I think I've used Shoreham in a video, certainly in a flight video. I might have used it in a startup, I'm not quite sure. As always, it's a great airport. Everything that Orbex does pretty much is really top quality, and I would recommend it. As I mentioned before, it's quite a short runway, so you have to really work hard to get the aircraft slowed down and stopped. I'm pretty much I'm standing on the brakes at the end of the runway to get it slowed down enough to taxi off the runway. A long taxi. I don't mind taxis. I kind of enjoy taxiing the aircraft, exploring the airports. See a lot of parked aircraft. Great thing about FSX, of course, is that you get traffic almost, well, yeah, built into the sim, and of course that's not here with X-Plane, unfortunately, and there are packages out there that help with that, but they're a bit hit and miss. So I hope you enjoyed that, and as always, feel free to like, comment and subscribe.